Hi, I'm Dr. Manoj Krishna. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak at the World Education Summit this year. I'm going to talk about how we can transform education to better meet the needs of students and society. I'm going to be talking about four things: why we need to change, what changes we need to make, how they can be implemented, and how this is going to transform the future for children and our society. There's some big ideas in this presentation. But first, let me begin with a story. I met a man in his 40s. He was a banker. And I asked him, what was the most important thing in his life? He paused, and then he said it's his 11-year-old daughter. I said, what do you want for her future? And he said, I want her to be happy and successful. I said, all right. How do you think her education system is preparing her to do that? And he said, well, it's actually making her unhappy because of all the stress of exams and social anxiety and so on. And as far as the future is concerned, well, I'm hoping the grades she gets will get her a good job in the future. But I said, do you know that all the research suggests that long-term success is based more on our soft skills, on our emotional intelligence and communication ability and so on? And he said, well, they're not teaching her any of that. I said, I've got one more question for you. Do you want her to be the best, the number one at whatever she does? He said, yes, of course, I want her to be really successful. I said, okay. Do you want her to be successful in a world that's at peace with itself and in harmony, or in a world that's in chaos? He said, of course I want her to be successful in a world that's thriving and at peace. I said, okay, what are you doing in your life to make the world a better place? And he had no answer. And he said, all I'm doing is looking after my own success. So we have many challenges that we need to address. 1 in 5 teens has a mental health problem. Imagine that. 17% are self-harming. 1 in 5 get bullied. 1 in 3 suffer from anxiety. And 4 in 5 are stressed, and they tell me it impacts learning. When it comes to teachers, 72% of them are stressed. More than half want to leave the profession, and about half say stress impacts teaching. So you have a school where both the teachers and the students are stressed for different reasons, perhaps, and this impacts both the ability to teach and the ability to learn. So something needs to be done. 75% of employers say staff lack soft skills. So after these kids leave school, employers are saying, well, they don't have the skills they need for work. And long-term success, as we know, depends more on your emotional intelligence than on your grades and your IQ. Society as a whole, then, where these young people will come and become adults, has so many challenges. 1 in 6 people suffer from an addiction. 50% of relationships are breaking down. Loneliness affects 60% of us. Stress and anxiety is about 80%. And of course, there's a lack of civility, kindness in our day-to-day lives. There is, of course, also the looming problem of climate change, for which nobody seems to have an answer. So my question is, could there be a single solution rooted in learning to address all these challenges? You see, many of these problems begin in our thinking, in how our mind automatically responds to its challenges without our own awareness. I mean, you're never aware why you're stressed. You just experience that feeling in your brain. So it follows that a deeper understanding of our own mind could help us to avoid and overcome these problems more easily. This is really simple. 10-year-old children get it. I've been working with young people for more than 5 years. And in fact, the younger the children, the easier it is for them to grasp this. But here's the dilemma. All over the world, we're educated only about the world around us and not ourselves. No educator has been able to answer, why is that? Surely that's an imbalance that needs to be addressed. So here are 3 suggestions for change, which I'm going to explore now. The first is to reduce the curriculum and the pressure of exams. The second is to teach self-knowledge and happiness as a separate subject. And the third is to teach children to care not just for themselves, but for society as a whole and for the earth. So why do we pressurize children to memorize information and repeat it in exams when everything is instantly available on our phone? Exams were invented when there were very few books and we needed to carry that knowledge in our heads. Now, even if you're going shopping and you're making a list of 10 things, you're going to write it down because you'll forget. Reducing the curriculum could reduce the pressure on students and teachers, and of course, make space to teach other skills like self-knowledge. Now, to teach self-knowledge, you need to start with a mind that's quiet. So there are mindfulness exercises and breathing exercises and so on that can help us do that. We then need to teach young children how to have an awareness of their thoughts and feelings, just to be aware of them without judging them as right or wrong, good or bad. And then, once you're aware, to ask a question. Why do I think and feel this way? What's going on in my mind? What can I learn about myself or how my mind works? And this question and this learning can bring transformation. It could, for example, help young people to navigate social media. You see, once you understand that we are conditioned by our past influences or all our influences, we're not aware we're being conditioned. And yet, this shapes our thinking, our behavior, and how we feel. It allows us to become aware, question these influences, so we can make the right choices for our own life. Also, understanding the hidden process of comparison in our own thinking helps us compare ourselves with others only when it serves us. This can help us avoid envy and low self-esteem. So the problem doesn't lie with social media, but in the unconscious, automatic way our mind engages with that. And the more we help young people become aware of what's happening in their own mind, the more easy it becomes for them to navigate social media in a way that serves them. This could also help reduce stress and anxiety because they are just an automatic reaction from our thinking to what's happening in the world. Our mind assumes that our stress comes from our exams or what other people are thinking about us or from what other people have and we don't. But actually, stress is just an automatic reaction from our thinking to that trigger. And self-awareness puts us in charge of our own reactions. So we can be less stressed, anxious, and of course this can result in less self-harm. Understanding our inner restlessness, conditioning influences, and our need to escape from our emotional distress can help us reduce addiction. Because it is these drivers that push us to vaping, drinking, or taking too much drugs. Imagine if we could bring this deeper understanding into education, and we could make a huge impact in the drug addiction or alcohol addiction problem in society as a whole. This deeper understanding helps us to have meaningful friendships, because understanding ourselves can help us understand others better, and we can communicate with care. And this can make us feel less lonely and have relationships with less conflict. More than half of relationships among adults are strained or unhappy. Imagine if we could make a difference to that, and it begins in education. We could help children be happier. You see, the key to happiness, once you have this awareness, you realize it lies within us. We could be more grateful for what we already have. Look at every situation with a positive attitude rather than a negative one. Not compare ourselves with others when it doesn't serve us, and be comfortable with who we are. Accept how we look, what we own, what our talents are, and so on. This can help us live in peace with ourselves and be happier. We could be emotionally intelligent because understanding our emotions can help us manage them better. This makes us more resilient, and can contribute to our relationships and to our success. Children who are happier learn better, we know that, and they can focus more, absorb more information, and have fewer behavioral problems. So all the bad behavior that we see breaking out in so many parts of the world in education could be tackled by helping children be happier and understand themselves and how their minds work. We could help them think more clearly and make better choices in their lives, because a deeper understanding of the drivers behind our choices, like our fears, our conditioning influences, and our emotions, can help us think more clearly. And this can we could make better choices around our careers, around how much we eat or drink or take drugs. For example, this could impact the obesity epidemic, which is affecting 22% of young people. And it could help us have, of course, happier relationships and make better choices on the life partners that we choose for ourselves. If we are happier, we have space to be more kind. If our mind is on fire with stress, anxiety, and some other distress, there's no space for us to think about others. Understanding others can help us have compassion for them, because we realize everyone struggles and is doing their best. Kindness is a gift we give ourselves, because it's the glue that holds our relationships together. And it is these relationships that are the future for our long-term happiness. So in summary, teaching this self-knowledge to young people could help them be happier, learn better, be mentally healthy, emotionally intelligent, avoid the perils of addiction, have deeper friendships, be less lonely, navigate social media with intelligence, develop a positive mindset, and be more kind. And all of this comes from just one thing, which is teaching young people to understand themselves and how their minds work, understand their thoughts, their feelings, and their behavior. And because deep down we know that we're the same human being, this also leads to compassion. We also need to teach children. So we've reduced the curriculum. We have taught children self-knowledge. But the third thing we need to do is teach children to care. Because we need young people to be able to come together to address the big existential problems that humanity faces, like climate change or violence or war. We need to help young people understand that they need to care not just for their own success, but for others and for the earth as a whole, because their individual future depends on looking after the earth and humanity as a whole. This understanding needs to begin in education. The future of the planet and of humanity depends on it. So how can we bring the teaching of self-knowledge into education? I can hear you already say there's no space in the curriculum. Who's going to teach this? We don't have the skills. Pause. 30 years ago when computers first came in, we had the same reaction. Who's going to teach computing? Nobody knows this. There's no space in the curriculum. But if we realize and accept something is really important, it happens. Now there are computing departments absolutely everywhere. So here are some practical things you could do. We could make space in the curriculum, because we realize that young people don't need to carry all that information in their heads. It's on their phones anyway. We can use online resources. For example, we've created the Happier Me self-awareness app for young people precisely for this reason. Encourage young people to have group discussions. It's in the discussions that this learning gets reinforced. And online journaling or a paper journal is really useful, because self-reflection is the key to self-transformation. And how could this transform our society? Well, we could have a kinder, more inclusive society. We could live in peace with ourselves and others. We could come together to address our challenges, like climate change. And of course, we could prepare young people for work because they'd be emotionally intelligent and have all the soft skills they need to thrive. And of course, help them be happier as well. Now, I know you're thinking, oh, this is just a utopian dream. It's not possible. But may I remind you that we humans are amazing. When John F. Kennedy in 1960 said, in 10 years, I'm going to put a man on the moon, nobody believed him. But in 1969, 400,000 engineers worked together so Neil Armstrong could walk on the moon. By comparison, what we're trying to do here is much simpler. I'd encourage you to think, how can we bring this change about rather than why can't we? I hope I've made a case for bringing this self-knowledge into education in a really practical way. I'm inspired by two people. Nelson Mandela, who said, everything seems impossible until it's done. Nobody can argue that there isn't a case for addressing all these challenges as I've outlined. We just have to take the first step and then the second one. I'm also inspired by an Aboriginal elder I met when I was working in Australia. And he said, traveller, there's no path. Paths are made by walking. So we just need to start walking and the path itself will become clearer. I'd love to work now with people who share this vision and can come together with me to bring something practical into education. So if this resonates with you, please reach out to me via email. It's on the slide. And let's explore how we could work together to transform education and make it fit for the 21st century so it serves the needs of students, society, and the earth as a whole. The future of humanity depends on it. It's a huge responsibility, but together, everything is possible. Thank you so much for listening.